that didn't tell you what the mode of the action of the medicine is?
The pill one, right?
Okay. All right. I'm definitely gonna check that out.
But
Okay.
it says on here, what did it say? Let me go back.
Can it stay hidden still? I thought I remember before saying like up to 7 years.
10.
Is it 10?
Yeah, up to 10 years. Yeah. Because I went to a lecture on the discovery of when they found out that some people have a gene that makes them immune to it. So I remember going to that lecture on it, and I guess that's what they're basing that cure on, are people who have that gene that codes for it. Okay. Now, our next chapter that we're going to move into is the respiratory system. It seems a little odd to be moving into this chapter next, because you would think, okay, well, if we've been talking about blood vessels, if we've been talking about the immune system, why aren't we going to the kidneys next? Well, this is because in the respiratory system, there is this huge immune component as well as our blood vessel component with this system. And then, of course, we'll get to the kidneys after this chapter. In our respiratory system, the structure of the respiratory system is where it's going to become important. And I don't see our little alveolus in here. But when we look at this system, what we're actually looking into here, we're kind of having a little bit of a view from the smallest tubing that exists in the lungs getting into an alveolus, all right? Because our structure of the system is dependent on an alveolus. In the grand scheme of things, they are the alveoli because we have so many of them, I think like 1 million, okay? And their job, of course, exchange gases. Now, which gases?
Oxygen and carbon dioxide.
Oxygen, carbon dioxide. That's it. All right? Doesn't matter what other gases are out there, okay? That's their job. Oxygen, carbon dioxide. In doing their job, they're going to help with voice production, olfaction. Now, this right here. They help with regulation of pH. What? Okay, but wait a minute. The only thing I deal with is oxygen and carbon dioxide. And now I got to deal with pH. pH, oh yeah. Trust me on that. Because remember, in our blood stream, okay, we're carrying the CO2. The CO2 is what makes the blood acidic. So the respiratory system is very important in helping control the pH. But what's this about blood pressure? How does my breathing help control blood pressure? Okay, respiratory rate changes with demands of the body. But do you guys remember ACE? Angiotensin. And we've kind of mentioned that a couple of times. These two systems come heavy into play with angiotensin. All right? And the lungs are where we find the angiotensin converting enzyme, ACE, which affects blood pressure. So this is where we kind of have a huge impact on blood pressure. And then, of course, on blood and lymph flow. Anybody remember what I said about movement in the thoracic area for these fluids? Alex?
Because there's lung expansion will create pressure that will help recirculate the lymphatic fluids.
Well, not just lymphatic, but blood also. Because our diaphragm, okay, skeletal muscle, all right, and it's innervated, the phrenic nerve, all right, and as we breathe, we create what's called that thoracic pump. And remember, blood in veins, we need that to help return back to the heart, okay? And then it helps with pushing, you know, those lymphatics for moving that fluid. So we have this thoracic pump that will exist in this area of the body cavities, in this abdominal region, okay, for moving those fluids. When we talk about the movement of air in and out, this is ventilation. The gas exchange that will occur, it's going to occur between air that's in the lungs and blood making it to the lungs. We have what's called external respiration. Because this breathing is external. Don't confuse it with what happens in like cellular respiration, because external respiration is going to be referring to what happens between this air that we breathe in to the blood that it meets, and then internal is that blood taking it to a tissue at that cellular level. Okay? So external, internal. And then cellular respiration is simply cell breathing. Do you guys remember that? Where the oxygen goes in and it's used in the making of the ATP. Does everybody remember that? Okay. Just kind of let that go for a second. All right. Now, moving oxygen and carbon dioxide is, of course, the transport that's going to occur. Don't forget, the transport can be done for the oxygen. The only way is the iron on the hemoglobin of the red blood cell. The CO2, it can attach to the globin of the hemoglobin, but the majority of it is dissolved in the blood and is buffered. Do you guys remember that? For carrying the CO2, because we want the red blood cells to carry oxygen. That's what we want them to do. This is what's considered the respiratory system. We have our upper and our lower respiratory system. Upper, pretty much everything until we get to the branching, and then we become lower. We've got our nose, we've got our pharynx, our larynx, trachea, bronchi, lung. We've got these components of the respiratory system. The lungs being these organs, but we're going to find in these accessory organs, these other organs, they are very important in their function, especially these little flaps right here. They're very important. Did y'all know you had flaps on the sides of your sides? They're really cool, okay? They create turbulence and help warm and moisten the air. So that the air going to the lungs is the same temperature as the rest of your body. You don't want this cooler air out here that's not 98.6 going to the lung tissue. You need it to be roughly that 98.6, or else you're going to freeze or burn the tissue. It's kind of cool. Ever thought about that? Take a break, be back at 10:30.